Agenda debate on motion on the second reading of the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3, HB 1 of 2026.
Thank you. When this debate was adjourned on 16th June 2026, question before the House was a motion by the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs that the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 Bill, HB 1 2026, be now read a second time. Is there any further debate? The Honorable Minister and Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, let me just start by thanking the honorable members, Mr. Speaker, for the debate that happened the last 2 weeks. All the honorable members who wanted to debate, I believe they managed to debate, and therefore I will give my response to the debate. Mr. Speaker, I rise to reply to the second reading debate on the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 3 Bill, HB 1 of 2026. Mr. Speaker, before doing so, may I thank honorable members for their spirited and constructive engagement of the bill. Over 7 sitting days, members from every province and both sides of the ISO rose to engage the bill with the energy that does credit to Parliament. Whatever our differences, Mr. Speaker, the people of Zimbabwe have watched their representatives debate the supreme law of the land with seriousness, and that in itself vindicates the institution which this bill proposes to trust as the forum for selecting the country's head of state and government. Mr. Speaker, I'm also grateful to the invaluable and technical grounded contributions that I got from colleagues in making this response. Let me, Mr. Speaker, share with the Honorable House the shape of its own debate as it unfolded over a historic course of 7 sittings. A record-breaking, Mr. Speaker, 182 members made substantive contributions. Of this, 111 supported the bill as a whole. A further 31, Mr. Speaker, supported the bill while raising reservations on specific provisions, and 10 members raised issues without taking a final position, and 30 opposed the bill in its entirety. All told, Mr. Speaker, 139 of the 182 were positively disposed towards the bill. More than one member in 3 of this entire House, Honorable House, rose to debate this bill. This compares very well with CAB 1 and CAB 2. At the second reading of CAB 1 in 2017, Mr. Speaker, only 19 members rose on the record before the Honorable House, while CAB 2 in 2021, it only had 18. Therefore, this bill, Mr. Speaker, by the parliamentary record itself, is the most debated constitution amendment in the country's constitutional history. The provisions that attracted the most comment were the election of the president through parliament, the distinction between the length of the term and the term limit, the future of the gender commission, and the political status of traditional leaders. I will address each of them in its place. Mr. Speaker, I turn first to the report of the Joint Committee presented by Honorable Shobgo, its chairperson. I thank him and every member of the committee for a report of genuine quality. The report is thorough, it is candid, and it carries the voice of the people in numbers that deserve to be read into the record once more. The committee received 540,037 submissions on this bill. Of these, 537,102 were in support and 2,935 were against. The provincial public hearings drew 54,231 citizens through their doors. Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned a little while ago, no amendment has been interrogated by so many of its citizens in the recent history of constitutional history of this country. The Joint Committee did not simply count these voices. It weighed them clause by clause. In the main, Mr. Speaker, the committee recommended the adoption of the bill's provisions, and in respect of certain provisions, it recommended refinements. For example, that the Electoral Commission retain the accreditation of observers, that the hierarchy of our two apex courts be better clarified, and that the traditional leaders provision should not be adopted, and that the leadership terms of the National Council of Chiefs be aligned to the new 7-year national electoral cycle, and that the Gender Commission remain in place. Mr. Speaker, government has studied each of these recommendations with the seriousness that they deserve, and I will respond to each in the cluster to which it belongs, and more specifically during the committee stage. The report of the Joint Committee is compelling evidence of what consultation means, not a ritual to be performed and forgotten, but a discipline that binds the framers of a bill to listen to those who examined it. Mr. Speaker said, mark well what was not said. Members questioned the manner of the hearings, but not one rose to say that the committee's report was false or its figures wrong. The very members who challenged me left the central record, Mr. Speaker, untouched on public hearings. The very members, their silence, Mr. Speaker, their silence upon it is its endorsement, and it is the full answer to those who cry from outside this honorable house that the figures were cooked, while saying nothing against them within it. And for support that named no single clause but embraced the entire bill, I thank Honorable Mangondo, Honorable Taraziva, Honorable Mapumo, Honorable Marange, and Honorable Zidzai Butau. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the debate on the core amendments. Mr. Speaker, I come to debate on the bill's core amendments which drew the heaviest debate, the election of the President through Parliament and the length of the national electoral cycle. I want to thank Honorable Matema for opening that debate with the reminder that this is not foreign terrain for Zimbabwe, because Parliament elected the President and the then Prime Minister in this country before 1990. In the same vein, Mr. Speaker, I thank Honorable Shidua for situating the bill's reforms in the honest company of other nations that have amended their constitutions far more often than we have. In particular, I thank Honorable Togarepi for the clearest statement of the distinction on which so much of this debate turns. Also, Mr. Speaker, I thank Honorable Mtodi for contrasting the histories of our deeply disputed presidential elections with the quiet of our parliamentary ones. And I thank Honorable Sibanda, who rose from the opposition benches to eloquently endorse the spirit of these reforms. That took conviction, and the Honorable House noticed. On entrusting the election of the President to Parliament, I thank also Honorable Machadu who cited Professor Madulku's endorsement of Parliament as the Electoral College. I am also grateful to Honorable Mpasi, Honorable Jaravaza, and Honorable Batista, and Honorable M. Komo, Honorable Munemo, Honorable Murambiwa, who spoke to the same purpose, and for support that embraced the whole of the bill. I thank in particular Honorable Machangira, Honorable S. Dube, Honorable Jana, Honorable M. Ziyambi, and Honorable Chikwina. I thank too for the same wholeheartedly endorsement of the bill, Honorable J. Chuma, Honorable Maunganidze, Honorable Maoneke, Honorable Mukungunugwa, and Honorable Zemura. Response, Mr. Speaker, on specific concerns. Mr. Speaker, before I address notable issues raised by some honorable members, let me say something with all due respect about the manner of their concerns. Listening to some contributions, one would be forgiven for thinking the honorable members concerned were absent when I presented the second reading speech, or that they were unaware that the speech exists at all. Printed, Mr. Speaker, in the Hansard for any member who cared to read it. This is because they responded out of context, and honorable members know that context is everything, Mr. Speaker. The context of this bill is historical and constitutional. It is the mischief that the bill seeks to remedy, and I gave that mischief a name and a number in my second reading speech. I outlined, Mr. Speaker, 5 afflictions that have gripped our public life since the introduction of direct presidential elections in 1990. The perennially disputed presidential context with the political violence and lost investment that trail it, the policy paralysis of a nation trapped in permanent election mode, the corruption that instability feeds, and that every cycle renews, the politicization of a public service that should be neutral, professional, and continuous, and the polarization of a society asked again and again to divide itself against itself. 5 afflictions, Mr. Speaker, not 1, not 2, or 3, or 4, but 5, interlocking and documented. That is the mischief, Mr. Speaker. No one needed the help of a lawyer or a rocket scientist to grasp it, because I gave it, Mr. Speaker, in this honorable house from this floor. Yet not one, Mr. Speaker, of the 30 members who opposed this bill in its entirety engaged all the 5 afflictions. Most seized upon one, declared the bill to be about nothing else, and rejected the whole on the strength of that one part. Honorable Gumbo, to take an example, built his entire bombastic rejection of the bill on elections and elections alone, as though I stood on this floor and named dysfunctionally disputed elections as the only affliction bedeviling our country. The other 4, Mr. Speaker, he left standing exactly where I placed them, unanswered to this day, Mr. Speaker.
On a point of order, Honorable Speaker. Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
That's the point of order.
Honorable Speaker, with all due respect to the Honorable Minister, when the Honorable Members of Parliament debate a bill of this importance, they are not doing so in an individual capacity. They are doing it not just as august members of this House, but as representatives of the people of Zimbabwe who do not have the privilege to attend an important assembly of this nature. So to the extent that each and every one of us took time to participate in this debate, we're not doing it at a personal level. And the language that the Honorable Minister is using is very unparliamentary. A word like bombastic is totally unacceptable. But to go personal, each member of parliament who objected to this bill, to the extent that he's doing, is definitely unparliamentary and is disrespectful of his honorable colleagues. And I request the Honorable Speaker to encourage the Honorable Minister to respond not to the people, but to the issues that were raised against the bill.
Order. Before you come to that conclusion, you must check the Hansard as to whether or not the said members did not state what the Honorable Minister has said. Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, according to Honorable Gumbo, all that needs to be done is to observe the rule of law. With respect, Mr. Speaker, that's a simplistic view where it is demonstrated that there is a lacuna in the law or there is a structural mischief that enables bad behavior in the body politic. It is imperative, Mr. Speaker, for Parliament to intervene. The important point that Honorable Gumbo and his associate miss is that it is the constitutional duty of this House to make the law. Some honorable members, Mr. Speaker, came to debate, if I may so kindly, Mr. Speaker, with preconceived ideas. And a preconceived idea is a speech written before the other side is spoken. And the irony, Mr. Speaker, should not escape the Honorable House. The very members who ignored 4 of the 5 afflictions now present themselves as the guardians against polarization and corruption. The very afflictions this bill, Mr. Speaker, precisely exists to remedy. Mr. Speaker, where what it means to reject this bill in its entirety, among its provisions, is one that does no more than delete a single word a previous amendment left behind when it abolished the office of the first vice president, and one that ends a commission the Constitution itself had already time limited, as I shall come to shortly. The Zimbabwe Council of Churches, the Zimbabwe Heads of Christian Denominations, and the Zimbabwe Catholic Bishops' Conference rejected this bill wholesale in their written submissions to Parliament. And the Honorable Engineer Mangwa on this floor took up that cry as his own. To reject a bill in its entirety when it includes clauses that merely complete what the Constitution and a previous amendment had already settled is not to defend the Constitution. This is, to quote Mr. Speaker yourself, pedantry. It is the tale. Such a rejection was never about the Constitution. It was just a mere rejection. Never about what we are doing here. Mr. Speaker, let me dwell a moment on Honorable Ngadziwore, whose contribution illustrates a trait that marred too many of the rejections we had during the debate. He told the Honorable House emphatically that South Africa cannot be our comparator because it elects its parliament by proportional representation, while Zimbabwe, in his own words, is a first-past-the-post system. He was so certain, Mr. Speaker, about this that at one point he rose on a point of order and demanded a colleague to withdraw. The record does not need correcting, Mr. Speaker, but not as he supposed. Zimbabwe does not have a first-past-the-post system. It has a hybrid system in which constituency seats are filled by the first-past-the-post, while a substantial body of seats are filled by proportional representation. The proof, Mr. Speaker, required no textbook. It was standing in the chamber. The honorable member himself sits in this honorable house by virtue of the very proportional representation he told us this country does not use. He wants to correct another. On effect, his own seat disapproves, Mr. Speaker. And he was not alone, Mr. Speaker. Member after member rose to perform against this bill rather than engage it, purporting to be certain of things that are clearly not so, and pretending to correct colleagues who were in fact right. How a parliament is filled does not change. How a parliament is filled, Mr. Speaker, does not change what a parliament does. That was the simple matter before us, missed most loudly by those most eager to pontificate. Mr. Speaker, sir, Honorable Shashwa made the same error, and the same answer meets it. The question before us is not how a parliament is constituted.
Point of clarity.
What clarification are you seeking, honorable member?
Yes, I seek clarification. He has referred to my name, but he has not favored me with the explanation in terms of what I did that was wrong. Can you please favor me with that explanation so that I adequately respond?
Thank you very much, honorable member. Do you have the Hansard with you there? Do you have the Hansard with you there?
I don't have the Hansard, but I remember fully well what I said.
Order. Speak to the record of the Hansard. And then if the honorable minister is misquoting, then that shall be corrected.
He's actually misquoting. He's misquoting me. I know what I said.
You don't have the answer there. You admit it. Please sit down.
But I know what I said.
Can you sit down? Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the question before us...
Can we have order, members on my right?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the question before us is not how a parliament is constituted. It is what a parliament does. In South Africa, however, its members arrive in the chamber. Those members elect the president. In Botswana, Mr. Speaker, which uses the first past the post, the presidency goes to the leader of the party that wins a majority of the directly elected National Assembly seats. And that system recently delivered a peaceful transfer of power. That is precisely the family of mechanisms this bill proposes to join. How nations build or choose their legislatures differs the world over. Ours, as honorable members know, is a hybrid of constituency seats and proportional seats, and every one of those seats is filled by the vote of the people. The function is the point, and the function is identical, Mr. Speaker. And since the comparative question has been put, Mr. Speaker, let the Honorable House have the full comparative picture of the states around the world, 56, elect their head of the executive directly, and 53 elect the same indirectly through their parliaments. Some honorable members opposite would have us believe that the majority settles the argument. But examine the majority. It consists overwhelmingly of former military regimes, former one-party states, and systems in transition from authoritarian rule, where the strongman's ballot was the favored instrument of legitimacy. Now examine the 53. They include the most stable, most prosperous, and most enduring parliamentary democracies on earth, and they include the majority of the Commonwealth of Nations, 34 of its 56 members. Honorable Butao pressed the point in plain terms that the second largest economy on earth is governed through its national institutions, not in spite of them. And let the Honorable House note who keeps this company. South Africa sits among them, a nation whose freedom was won through one of the most protracted liberation struggles of our continent. Angola, Mr. Speaker, whose liberation war was among the longest and deadliest in Africa, sits among them. These nations did not come by the people's voices cheaply. They bled it. They bled for it. Yet their liberation movements in government entrust the election of the president to the people's representatives in parliament. Zimbabwe sat in this company before 1987, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker said, this bill does not march Zimbabwe out of the democratic mainstream. It walks it out of a club whose membership was built by dictatorships in transition and back into the company of fellow liberation states and enduring parliamentary democracies whose stability we have every reason not just to envy, but to join. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Makumire invoked those who died for the principle of one man, one vote. And he named names that this Honorable House receives with respect. Let me say this plainly, Mr. Speaker. Nothing, and I repeat, nothing in this bill touches the right of every adult Zimbabwean to vote. Nothing. Not one citizen loses a ballot. Every adult Zimbabwean will continue to register, to queue, and to vote in every polling station, ward, constituency, and every province in every general election. Every seat in parliament is filled by the people, and the president, this bill contemplates, would hold office by the mandate of the people, expressed through every constituency and every province at once, carried by the representatives the people themselves choose. The people who elect the electors to produce a representative outcome that ensures peace, stability, unity, and development. Honorable Majindu pressed the same concern in another form, urging that to have the Honorable House elect president, the president would diminish an office whose legitimacy springs from the millions. The millions remain, Mr. Speaker, and it is they who elect the electors. An office filled by the people's own chosen representatives is not a diminished office, but a constituted one. Mr. Speaker, and let history complete the answer. The settlement or liberation struggle delivered in 1980 had Parliament electing the head of state, while the head of government was the leader of the political party that commanded the majority in Parliament. The executive presidents arrived only in 1987 in anticipation, Mr. Speaker, of a legislated one-party state that never came. So I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, if the honorable members want us to introduce a one-party state, we would gladly accept a ZANU-PF, Zimbabwe one-party state. So when an honorable member invokes our fallen heroes, let him invoke them accurately. The system this bill proposes is the one that the founding leaders of the liberation movement itself wrote at independence. That is not the betrayal of one man, one vote. It is its operation restored to its founding form. Mr. Speaker, Honorable James and Honorable Cooker pressed the same sovereignty argument and the same answer, and the answer is the same. Honorable James told us it is fundamentally undemocratic to expect members of parliament to decide a question of this weight. He made that argument as a member of parliament, Mr. Speaker, standing in this parliament. And he who cast his vote on this very bill, expecting it to count. Mr. Speaker, a member who argues that this honorable house cannot be trusted with great questions should tell us what he believes his own seat. Mr. Speaker, what he believes his own seat is there for. Sovereignty resides in the people, and the people exercise it both directly and through their elected representatives. Honorable Muri reminded the Honorable House of the text itself. The legislative authority of Zimbabwe derives from the people, and it is vested in their parliament. We do not say a mayor lacks legitimacy because councillors elect him. Honorable Cooker's own council elects its mayor in precisely the same way. We do not say you, Mr. Speaker, lacks authority of the people because this honorable house elects you, or that the Chief Justice lacks the judicial authority of the people because the President appoints him. Representative election or even delegated appointment is not the dilution of the popular will. It is its constitutional form. Honorable Makuvire, Honorable Janji, and Honorable Mujay spoke to the same truth, that the people's authority is exercised through the very house they elect. Mr. Speaker said, Honorable Mshoriwa told the Honorable House that the 2013 Constitution was endorsed by 94.5% of those who voted, and that this bill dishonors that mandate. Mr. Speaker, that is clearly a political statement, nothing more. Meanwhile, I invite him to read what those millions endorsed. They endorsed a constitution that contains within its form 4 corners: the procedure for its amendment in section 328. The people did not vote for a frozen document. They voted for a living constitution, and they wrote the key to its renewal into the document itself. To use the procedure which the people ratified is not to dishonor their mandate, it is to obey it faithfully. Mr. Speaker said, not every member who rose in doubt did so without engaging the bill. Honorable Nyati engaged it in good faith, raising conditions rather than rejecting and accepting the principle that Honorable House to wear. She told us that the campaigns around the bill, the advertisements on radio and television, the jingles and the songs were centered on an individual, and on that she predicated her rejection of the bill in its entirety. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have read this bill many times, and I am sure many honorable members have done likewise, there is no clause in the bill about a jingle, no provision about a radio advert, and no section about a song. Nor does any of this appear in the second reading speech I delivered from this floor, printed, Mr. Speaker, in the Hansard, and available to every member who cared to read it. To conflate, Mr. Speaker, a tune on the radio with the supreme law of the land is to debate everything except the bill before us. And this is what disappoints, Mr. Speaker. The text of this bill is published. The speech that explains it, mischief by mischief and provision by provision, sits in the Hansard. A member who wished to oppose this bill
On a
on its
point of
merit.
order, Mr. Speaker, say.
What's the point of order? What's the point of order?
With all due respect, Mr. Speaker, you said that we should refer to the Hansard. I debated almost every clause of this bill, and I think it's really unfair and it's unfortunate that the Honorable Minister then picks an example that I made where the jingles that are being played on television and also on radio are just propelling an individual, but not actually getting into the merits of each and everything that I debated on the particular day. So I think he needs to get into the merit of my debate. I debated clause by clause, and for him to then just pick those elements, I think it's unfair and also very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker.
Did you refer to the jingles in your speech? Did you refer to the jingles in your speech?
As an example, but not anchoring the
Did you-
debate.
No, just answer me a straightforward question. Did you refer to the jingles in
Yes,
your
I
speech?
did, and the jingles are there.
Thank you. So the Honorable Minister is referring to the same jingles that you spoke about.
On a point of order, Mr. Speaker. On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, say. On a point of privilege, Mr. Speaker.
A point of order.
Yes.
I want a point of order, not privilege.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Speaker.
Are you raising a point of order?
Yes, a point of order.
What's the point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pai debate vekuti viredro kuri chikuku. Paitawa kuti president vakafanana na Mbappe vari 18 area. Asi asikutaurwa nawo minister iko zvinova kufanikiramo. Asi vanoda kutaura zvemajingles auraya kubva mombe.
Order. The Honorable Leader of Government Business and Minister of Justice has not finished his presentation. Honorable Minister, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was saying a member who wished to oppose this bill on its merits had every word he or she needed before them. Yet some came to this floor heedless of both the text and the speech and offered the Honorable House the jingles they said they had heard on the airwaves in the place of argument. The Honorable House, Mr. Speaker, deserves better. And so do the more than 500,000 citizens who took the trouble to read the bill and tell us what they thought of it. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Kore told the Honorable House that this bill creates no job, lowers no price of millimil, builds no school, and mends no hospital. And on that ground, she asked whose problem it solves. Honorable Stolle pressed the same charge in his own words, asking what national crisis requires this reform. They spoke for the people of Chikanga and of Chitungwiza North with feeling, and the hardships they named are real and were on this government day. But the argument, Mr. Speaker, Deshe, rests on a category error, and it goes to the very nature of the document the bill is amending. Mr. Speaker, a constitution is not a grocery list and was never meant to be one. Honorable Kore told us as much herself the price of oil, she said, has risen because of a war in Iran, and fertilizer because of another war in Ukraine. No constitution written in Harare, Mr. Speaker, moves those prices. And no amendment drafted in this honorable house ever could. To expect otherwise is to misconceive what a constitution is for. It comes before jobs and hospitals as the edifice within which that work is done, setting how power is held, how it is limited, and how it passes from one hand to hand in peace. To fault it, Mr. Speaker, for not lowering the price of bread is to confound the foundation with the roof. And so their question recoils upon them. They ask whose problem this bill solves and what crisis it demands it. It solves the problem of a nation that cannot build because it is forever locked in a toxic election mode. The disputed power and instability that frighten away the very investment from which jobs are created. The meal they speak of is milled in factories and that need a stable and a united country to run. This bill does not put bread on the table with its own hands. It builds the peace and continuity in which the baker can. That is the proper work of a constitution, which this bill is about. Mr. Speaker said there were others who also rose to reject the bill in its entirety. Among them, Honorable Jaipa, Honorable Mureri, Honorable Chikombo, Honorable Chimbaira, Honorable Mavunga, and Honorable Hamauswa. I have weighed their contributions with the rest, and the answer I have given to the 5 afflictions answers them too. Mr. Speaker, the loudest of those who would reject this bill was Honorable Mateo, who called the election of the president through parliament as an assault on the sovereignty of the citizen, a snatching of the ballot from the people's hands. I've answered that already. No citizen loses a ballot, and the people elect the very members who would elect the president. This practice proposed in the bill is not my invention. It is an international standard across constitutional democracies. But mark the irony, Mr. Speaker. A member who rose to defend democratic participation could not abide by the most basic principle of participation on this floor. The 10 equal minutes each member is allowed. He disputed the clock, refused his seat, and in the end argued himself out of the house. A man who cannot keep his own place on this floor is poorly placed to lecture it on the will of the people. Mr. Speaker said, Honorable Engineer Mangwa made what is arguably the most engaging case against the longer term, highlighting that projects vary in length, that no fixed extension matches them all, and that the true obstacles to delivery are funding and execution rather than the calendar. I thank him for arguing the substance, and I answered the substance to show him the fundamental point he misses. The case of a 7-year electoral cycle has never been that a road takes exactly 7 years to build. I'm sure Honorable Mona is here. You attest to that. It is that the present cycle devours the time in which anything is built. The first year after an election, Mr. Speaker, is consumed by transition and too often by vexatious litigation. The AG will testify to that. The final 2 years are consumed by campaigning and worse by the physical indiscipline that campaigning invites. The honorable member is right that funding and execution matter. That is precisely the fundamental point, Mr. Speaker. Funding and execution are the first casualties of perpetual election seasons. On the case for the longer national electoral cycle, I'm indebted to many. Honorable Kaitano set our open cycle against the term limit offices of other nations. Honorable Danzi gave the 7-year horizon as the framing of a faith community. And Honorable Mapiki put the course of our permanent campaigning in plain figures. Honorable Gwabeni, Honorable Muringa Zula, Honorable Mudo made the case based on the fundamentals of planning, continuity, and the stability that the young deserve. Honorable Mashavare set our open cycle beside the long cycle democracies of Europe. And Honorable Matinyanya brought word that Mbare had asked for the 2 added years by name. Honorable Chiwa and Honorable Mandiwanzira praised the case for continuity, and Honorable Shiriedenga for a constitution allowed to evolve with its people. The 7-year cycle does not promise that projects will fit a template. It promises government a sustained stretch of governing, and it promises the taxpayer relief from the most expensive habit in our public life, which is the permanent election mode. Mr. Speaker, I thank too Honorable Maburutse, Honorable Maricano, Honorable Murechu, Honorable Nyevera, who pressed the same case, and Honorable Makumbe and Honorable Matiza, who carried it from their constituencies for their unqualified support. I also thank Honorable Kanupula, Honorable Taskani, Honorable Mudunge Hama, Honorable Musiwa, and Honorable Murwira for their support of the whole of this bill. Many thanks also go to Honorable Esnyoni, Honorable Zelezai, Honorable Raraza, Honorable Mudukunye, and Honorable Timburwa. Mr. Speaker, say, Honorable Chigumbu attributed to me the claim that a longer term cures electoral violence. I said no such thing. And I corrected the record when it was made. I invited the honorable member to debate the speech I delivered rather than the one he had already written his reply to in advance of the second reading speech. What I have said and what the submissions of 500,000 citizens confirm is that our presidential elections have repeatedly brought tension, perennial dispute, and caused that our parliamentary and local government elections have not. And this bill responds to that lived national experience in the national interest. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the length of the term, Honorable Madzivanyika built his case on the wrong proposition that the provision fixing the duration of the term is itself a term limit provision, and he misquoted the Constitutional Court's binding decision in the landmark Mpungu case in purported support of his incorrect position. I corrected this on the floor, and Mr. Speaker, I now place the correction on the record. The passage the honorable member quoted was an observation or an illustration made by the court in passing. It's called obiter dicta. It was not the holding of the court or its ratio dissident, and the Honorable House should examine the very passage he relies upon. In it, the court listed, by way of illustration, 10 provisions, Mr. Speaker, of the Constitution as examples of term limits. 9 of the 10 share the defining feature of every true term limit or provision on tenure, namely an express cap or limit on how long a person may serve, a term non-renewable or renewable once only, or limited to a stated maximum. The 10th, section 95, subsection 2, the provision that merely fixes the duration of the presidential term carries no such cap and shares none of those defining elements. Its inclusion in that illustrative list was clearly, Mr. Speaker, a benign oversight, and nothing turns on it. The list was an aside, not the holding of the two-term rule, where the presidential term limit actually lives, and which should have been included in the list of examples given by the court, section 91, subsection 2, which is untouched by this bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, what our Constitution does, and the Honorable House should
Order. The honorable member outstanding there, can you take your seat? The honorable minister, may please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, what our Constitution does, and the Honorable House should hear this with care, is keep two distinct promises in two distinct provisions. One provision, Mr. Speaker, fixes how long a term runs. Another provision, untouched by this bill, says no person may hold the office of president for more than 2 terms. Think of a doctor's prescription, Mr. Speaker. Sir. One line, Mr. Speaker, fixes the size of the dose. Another line says no more than 2 doses. The doctor may raise the dose from 5 milliliters to 7. And the second line still reads exactly as it did. No patient in history, Mr. Speaker, has read a larger dose as a license to take a third. So it is with this bill. It lengthens the term from 5 to 7 years. It does not amend by a single word the rule that limits every occupant to 2 terms. The cap stands. And the proof that Parliament's power over the cycle runs in both directions, Mr. Speaker, the proof that Parliament's power over the cycle runs in both directions sits in Parliament's own record. In 2007, Parliament amended the Constitution to shorten its own life by 2 years to harmonize our elections. Every member present voted for it, the opposition included, and not one asked for a referendum. The power that shortened the cycle then is the power that lengthens it now. Mr. Speaker, sir, Honorable Gumbo and Honorable Muodzeri argued that the serving provisions of the Constitution bar a sitting incumbent from any benefit. Those provisions speak to term limit provisions, and for the reasons I have given, the length of the term is not a limit on the person. Honorable Madzivanyika went further and told this House that a referendum is required. He is wrong, Mr. Speaker, because that demand was made by several members. I will answer it comprehensively before I conclude. Mr. Speaker, say a word about constitutional arguments themselves for several members who are lawyers rose in effect to purportedly deliver the rulings on the constitutionality of the bill. Mr. Speaker, say Section 152, subsection 3 of the Constitution could not be plainer. The Parliamentary Legal Committee must examine every bill other than a constitutional bill, Mr. Speaker, to determine whether its provisions, if enacted, would contravene the Constitution. So the Constitution deliberately withholds, even from Parliament's own legal committee, the power to sit in judgment on a constitutional bill. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because when Parliament amends the supreme law of the land, Parliament is not subordinate to the existing text. Parliament, by special majority and special procedure, is the framer of the Constitution itself, appoints for the purpose. Yet, Mr. Speaker, some members rose in this debate as one-member law firms, claiming for themselves a jurisdiction the Constitution denies to the very technical committee of Parliament created for that task. Members are, of course, entitled to their opinions, but the judgment of the Constitution asks for, is the judgment of this Honorable House, voting by the majority the Constitution prescribes. I now turn, Mr. Speaker, to the debate on electoral ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the debate on the clauses dealing with the electoral ecosystem. I want to thank Honorable Makombe, Honorable Pinduka, Honorable Mureyani, Honorable Mashiswi, Honorable Ndou, Mutokonyi, and Honorable Ziyambi, as well as Honorable Rungave, Honorable T. Wungwe, who spoke to the practical sense of these reforms. To Honorable Mwadzeri and Honorable Gumbo, who described the transfer of voter registration to the Registrar General as executive capture, I say this. The Registrar General, Mr. Speaker, already holds the master record of every birth, every identity document, and every death in this republic. And the Minister of Home Affairs, who is an expert in IT and is in charge of that, will testify. The duplication of that record by a second institution is precisely what has haunted our voters' roll with the names of the deceased. Consolidating registration where the civil registry lives, while the Electoral Commission retains the conduct and supervision of every election and referendum, is not captured. It is coherent. Honorable V. Moyo gave the Honorable House the lived proof from Wange West, where the electoral body is seen only as an electioneers, while the registry's office serves the year round. And Honorable Nkala and Honorable Priscilla Moyo supported the same consolidation. To Honorable Thashkwayo, who warned of gerrymandering, I point out that the bill entrenches a dedicated constitutional delimitation authority precisely so that boundary drawing is the full-time discipline of a constitutional body rather than the part-time burden of an overloaded electoral body without the requisite expertise. And the Joint Committee's recommendation that ZEC retains the accreditation of the observers who will receive serious consideration when the Honorable House examines the bill clause by clause. On these same reforms, I also want to thank Honorable Chokuru Rama, Honorable Chinoda Kufa, and Honorable Kashambe, Honorable Jonga, Honorable Chitimbe, and Honorable Ziki, who supported consolidating registration where the civil registry lives and entrenching a dedicated delimitation authority. I record my gratitude as well to Honorable Ovute, Honorable Muwombi, Honorable Nyakuyezwa, and Honorable Arampofu, and Honorable Chari, who supported this bill in its entirety. Mr. Speaker said, the Honorable House should not forget who first moved this very transfer. It was Honorable Wende at the committee stage of the Electoral Amendment Bill in the last Parliament. And he was strongly supported, Mr. Speaker. He was strongly supported. And he still sits among us. I placed that on record in my second reading speech.
But Honorable Mandwanza, can you find a seat, please? Can you find a seat, please? Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was saying that the Honorable House should not forget who first moved it, Honorable Wende, who sits among us. And I indicated that I placed that on record in my second reading speech, and not one member has risen to deny it. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, some members, including Honorable Kore, sought to revise the record by claiming that the 2023 proposal by Honorable Wende, supported by Mr. Iti and Mr. Makam in the 9th Parliament, was only for the automatic registration by the Registrar General of Voters who attained the place of majority, with ZEC retaining the custody of the voters. The simple point, Mr. Speaker, is that the Registrar General cannot register any single voter without the constitutional power or function to register voters. It would be irrational to empower two public bodies with one and the same function of registering voters. Honorable Wende, Mr. Pitti, and Mr. Makam supported
Point of
by...
order, Mr. Speaker.
What's the point of order?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Apparently, in my submission yesterday, I did indicate, I did make reference to what the minister is talking about. I did go back to the Hansard of the 18th of May 2023, which the minister is referring to. So actually, my belief, which I did speak about yesterday, is that the minister, he actually took part of what Honorable Wende and others had recommended and left a significant portion of their recommendation, in the sense that Honorable Wende, Makam, and Biti, they did recommend automatic voter registration, which according to this Hansard, the minister also agreed to it. But the difference now was with respect to the voters' roll. Now, the voter registration...
Order.
Yes.
Order. Order. That information should have been tendered yesterday.
Did talk about it yesterday in my submission.
No, I said the Hansard record.
Did
Not talking about, but the Hansard record.
It's there
Thank
in
you.
yesterday's Hansard.
Thank you. The Honorable Member.
Mr. Speaker, that's exactly the point that I'm referring to, that you cannot have two bodies doing the same function. One purported only doing automatic registration and the other doing non-automatic. You can't do that. And hence I'm supporting what was proposed, that the Registrar General should do that. And this is the argument that I'm placing on record here. And I'm indicating, Mr. Speaker, that that proposal that was supported by the 9 Parliament is the proposal that I'm supporting, and that proposal cannot become capture now that this, because the government has taken it up and now it's being labeled a capture of the voters' roll. I rest my case on that, Mr. Speaker. And then I turn to the debate on the judicial alignment. Mr. Speaker, on judicial alignment, the debate was lighter, and the Honorable House will draw its own conclusions from which provisions the loudest criticism of this bill chose not to engage. I thank Honorable Mashingise for a constructive contribution on the relationship between our 2 apex courts, which arrives at the very clarification the Joint Committee recommended. Let me also correct one persistent confusion, Mr. Speaker. The expansion of the apex court's jurisdiction is a question of what the court may hear. It is not a question of how judges are appointed. Those are distinct provisions and distinct debates. And on appointments, the Judicial Service Commission remains in the mix. Its advisory role is preserved. What is removed is procedural inefficiency, not constitutional safeguard. On these provisions, Mr. Speaker, I thank Honorable Mahachi, Nyabani, and Mupadi, who engaged the reach of the apex court and the architecture of judicial appointment with care. Mr. Speaker, on the recalibration of the legislature, members raised the question of the Senate's composition with measure, and government took note. It is telling that this cluster drew so little fire from those who opposed the bill in its entirety. Where the substance is sound, Mr. Speaker, the silence speaks volumes. On the recalibration of the Senate, I thank Honorable Ndudzo, Nari, and Sakupanya for their constructive contributions. Yes, Sakupanya. I thank also for backing the wall of this bill, Honorable Chibagu, last night, Honorable Muchimba, Honorable Kambuzuma, and Honorable Kangausau, and Honorable Dumbarimwe. Then I turn to the debate on Section 212. Mr. Speaker, on the Defense Forces, Honorable Muodze recalled the provision, the most dangerous in the bill. A striking superlative, Mr. Speaker, for the honorable member never once read the provisions words to the Honorable House, except to say it's dangerous, without even reading anything. Honorable Gumbo described it as coup proofing. I asked the Honorable House to read the provisions rather than the slogans. In the first place, Mr. Speaker, the idea of coup proofing through an amendment to the Constitution is pedantic and really meaningless. Our Constitution already commands every security service to act in accordance with it. What this reform does is to harmonize the founding description of the Defense Forces with that principle, so that no reading of our Supreme Law can place any institution above it or besides it with a parallel mandate of its own. That's not coup proofing. It's fidelity to the Constitution. The Defense Forces remain bound to defend Zimbabwe, its people, its security, and its territorial integrity. What the amendment removes is textual ambiguity, and the Joint Committee, having weighed precisely the concerns of the honorable members raised, recommended the provision for adoption in the interest of democratic governance and the stability of the state. Honorable Sagandira raised his concern with care that moving from upholding to acting in accordance with the Constitution might dilute the force's founding duty. It does not, Mr. Speaker. The duty to defend Zimbabwe is restated, not relaxed. I now turn to some consequential alignments. Mr. Speaker, sir, I come to the debate on consequential alignments, and I come first to the Gender Commission, because on this provision, the Honorable House has been anonymous in a unanimous. Zogoro? Yes. Makawirirana, Mr. Speaker, mukanditendera kutaura nechikaranga. Muno muhouse pa nyaya iyi pakava nekubatana kwakanyanya tikateerera zvamakareva.
Honorable Minister, are you quoting someone's speech or what?
No, ndati mukanditendera kutaura neshona kuti pagender commission house yese yakanga yakabatana kuti vanoida. The joint house, after hearing the public, recommended that the joint gender commission remain in place and that the provision not be adopted. And this honorable house, Mr. Speaker, that recommendation found an echo across the aisle. Honorable Mutandi spoke against the measure from her experience leading a committee of parliament. Honorable Chakakura and Honorable Taomerwa viewed the evidential case for retention. Honorable Matsunga gave personal testimony to the commission's work. Honorable Joe Shongedza, Masangu, Masuku, Thompson, Martinenga, Chiwota, Karumazondo, Samson, Muzingwa, Buka, and Lovu, who all supported this bill, each rose to say the Gender Commission should stay. Honorable Linyani lent the same voice from Matebeleland North, and Honorable Muguni and Honorable Nuve from across the opposition bench said the same. Mr. Speaker, government tabled this provision in pursuit of institutional efficiency, and the argument for consolidation was made in good faith, but consultation is not theater. The Joint Committee has made a clear recommendation grounded in the submissions of the public and echoed across the Honorable House, and government stands guided by that recommendation. Let no one say the people spoke into the wind. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission, Honorable Muguni asked a serious question and asked it with care. When the Commission's chapter closes, what carries the work of healing forward? The Constitution itself limited the Commission, Mr. Speaker, to a 10-year term, which expired in 2023. The Joint Committee was right to observe that the review before us is, in that sense, the tidying of the text after the event. But the honorable member's deeper point is heard. The end of a commission's constitutional term is not the end of the nation's commitment to healing and to unity. That commitment outlives any single institution. It continues through the organs of the state charged with it, and this government does not treat the closing of a chapter as the closing of the book. Accordingly, the Constitution will continue to give full expression to the imperative of post-conflict justice, healing, and reconciliation. And our Attorney General will advise us so that we can come up with an act of parliament to deal with that. And then on the political participation of traditional leaders, Mr. Speaker, said the bill sought to resolve a real contradiction, namely a constitution that seats chiefs in parliament and counts their votes in constitutional majorities, yet asks them to stand outside political life. The public majority supported the provision. The Honorable House divided on it in good faith. I record too, Mr. Speaker, that the case for political participation of chiefs was pressed with conviction by Honorable Jerry, who urged that they be appointed rather than elected, by Honorable Manandra, Honorable Muskwe Shiri, Honorable Chaimvura, and Honorable Samambra. The Honorable House weighed their voices and the committee's recommendation alike. Honorable Guyo recalled Chief Ndiweni to show the cost of pushing traditional leaders to the margins of public life. And Honorable Makaza and Honorable Tayetwa spoke to the same end. But the Joint Committee identified the decisive principle. Our chiefs preside over courts of customary law, and those who sit in judgment must stand apart from partisan contest. This principle is unassailable. Government is persuaded and will be guided by the committee's recommendation that the status quo remain when the bill reaches its clause-by-clause consideration. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have saved one question for last but one, because it has been made by several honorable members. It deserves a complete answer. And because the answer exposes how little the demand has to do with the Constitution itself. The demand is that this bill must go to the referendum. The demand, Mr. Speaker, is that this bill must go to the referendum. It must not. And here is why, Mr. Speaker said. Honorable Makope and Honorable Mkomberi met the demand squarely in the debate, and I am glad to complete the answer they began. Honorable Maliganiso, an ally on this question, lent his voice to the same answer. Mr. Speaker said, the referendum is a matter of law. Mr. Speaker said, I repeat, the referendum is a matter of law, not of political appetite, disposition, or preference. The Constitution reserves the national referendum for 3 categories of amendment, and 3 alone. An amendment to Chapter 4 on the Declaration of Rights. If you read it, Mr. Speaker, it says amendment of Chapter 4. If you want to remove a comma on any part of Chapter 4, referendum. If you remove a comma or a substantial text on the founding values, no referendum. That's what the Constitution says. And it says an amendment to Chapter 16 on agricultural land, and an amendment to Section 328, the amending provision itself. For every other provision, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution prescribes a different and equally rigorous road. Publication of the bill in precise terms, which is what you did, Mr. Speaker, and a minimum of 90 days for public consultation, the affirmative votes of 2/3 of the membership of each house at the final reading. That is not a loophole, Mr. Speaker. That is the design, the will of the people expressed for amendments of this kind through the People's Parliament. So the question becomes a simple one. Does this bill amend the Declaration of Rights, the land chapter, or the amending provision? It does not, Mr. Speaker. And the Constitution itself tells us how to check. Section 328, subsection 2, provides that an act of Parliament that amends this Constitution, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, must do so in express terms, close quote. The Constitution is written in express terms, and it is amended in express terms. There is no such thing as an implied amendment to the Constitution. Such an amendment is not permissible under Section 328, subsection 2 of the Constitution, and therefore cannot be taken to a referendum. Now examine the case of honorable members on the referendum. It is built from foundation to top on implication that lengthening the electoral cycle somehow has the effect of amending the entrenchment provision, that providing for parliamentary election somehow indirectly amends the chapter on political rights in section 67, but no clause of this bill expressly amends the Declaration of Rights or the two-term rule, the amending procedure. It appears that some honorable members believe in amendment by atmosphere, a method the Constitution only words 4 clauses. You cannot, Mr. Speaker, amend by implication what the Supreme Law says may be amended only by declaration, and you cannot demand a referendum for amendments this bill does not make. Honorable Ngwenya read the Supreme Law's own amendment wrote to the correct conclusion that the bill travels exactly the path the Constitution prescribes. The same discipline answers the term limit argument, Mr. Speaker. The Constitution defines a term limit provision as one which limits the length of time that a person may hold or occupy a public office. The defining mark is the cap on the person, and the Constitution speaks its caps expressly: a term that is non-renewable, a term renewable once, a tenure of no more than 2 terms, and there are 15 such provisions in the Constitution. Not one of them is entrenched behind a referendum, and not one of them is amended by this bill. The national electoral cycle provisions this bill amends carry no cap or limit on any person, and they never have. Indeed, provisions of this very kind have governed every general election this country has held since 1980. President Mugabe served for 37 years under the same electoral cycle provisions. Across 4 decades, presidents and parliamentarians were re-elected and served far beyond a single cycle, without one court, one parliament, one religious group, or one opposition party ever suggesting that a limit was being breached. Everyone understood, Mr. Speaker, because the text says so, that the clock begins to the national electoral cycle and that it resets with every election. The first true and only presidential term limit in this country, Mr. Speaker, in this country's history, arrived in 2013 in the 2-term rule under section 91 subsection 2, written in the express cap language that every one of the 15 term limits in the Constitution carries. The framers wrote it as a new and distinct kind of provision, precisely because the national electoral cycle provisions had never done and could not do that way. That rule stands today exactly as the people adopted it, untouched by this bill, in letter or in spirit. And the living proof sits in the Constitution's own machinery of continuity when a presidential successor assumes office mid-cycle. He serves only the remainder of the cycle. And the member who wins a by-election, Mr. Speaker, does not win a fresh 5-year term, but only the time the cycle is left. The clock belongs to the electoral cycle, not to the person. And that is why no referendum attaches to it. And this, Mr. Speaker, is not theory untested. Twice before, the Constitution the people adopted in 2013 has been amended. And twice the road was the one the Constitution prescribes, the People's Parliament, voting by the special majority. And there is a final principle, Mr. Speaker, older than any of us, each parliament is the equal of every parliament before it. The authority to amend the constitution by its prescribed procedures belongs to the parliament now sitting as fully as it belonged to the parliament that adopted it. For one legislature cannot bind its successors. Parliament is therefore not merely authorized to consider this bill by the route the Constitution prescribes, it is duty-bound, Mr. Speaker, to do so. The demand for a referendum the Constitution does not require is not constitutional vigilance. It is a request that weakens and marginalizes Parliament by demanding that it abdicates a responsibility the Constitution places squarely upon it. Mr. Speaker, on public consultation, which it may be the last one, Mr. Speaker said, before I conclude, I must address the question of public consultation because several members, among them Honorable Sachwayo, Honorable James, disputed the consultation that produced the numbers I read into the record earlier. The Honorable House should remember what actually happened during those hearings. There were political leaders, Mr. Speaker, who instructed their supporters to stay away. There were voices that told the public that submission of views to Parliament was surrender. Tellingly, Mr. Speaker said, some of those same voices then traveled to the hearings. They implored the public to shun, such as the City Sports Center in Harare and the large city hall in Bulawayo, not to submit, but to be seen. And some of them now rise in this honorable house to tell us that the process lacked voices. Mr. Speaker said, one cannot demobilize his or her own supporters and then dispute the arithmetic of those who showed up. The bottom line is that you cannot reap where you did not sow. Honorable Metu carried to the Honorable House a grievance from Epworth North that Parliament had misrepresented the views of his people while conceding in the same breath that the hearings were held and their results published openly before the Honorable House. A charge of misrepresentation, Mr. Speaker, that collapses on the Speaker's own admission is no argument, but a complaint in search of one. Those who could not speak in person were invited to submit in writing, and the published count showed plainly where the majority stood. Those who told the people to be silent have been worsted by their own petard, and the 537,102 citizens who spoke anyway owe them no apology. Honorable Ziwayo gave the Honorable House the statistical defense of those numbers, and Honorable Jo reminded us that the hearings reached every district of this country. And if any member doubts what those numbers mean, let history supply the scale. When the first amendment to this constitution went to the people in 2017, the record before the Honorable House shows an attendance, Mr. Speaker, of 1,447 citizens in total. This bill drew 54,231 citizens. The numbers stand, Mr. Speaker, and there is power in numbers. Honorable Simoyo and Honorable Shamu marshaled those same figures in the bill's defense, and Honorable Maposa and Honorable Mchema testified that those who came were ahead and those who stayed away chose to. Honorable Trangirai reached for why nations failed and warned that this bill builds extractive institutions that concentrate power and shut the citizen out. He chose his authority poorly. The very book we cite prizes inclusive institutions and the widest possible participation. and the widest voice this nation has ever raised on any bill is 540,037 submissions, and the 54,231 citizens who came to those hearings, Mr. Speaker, sir. To stand on one theory, Mr. Speaker, to stand on a theory of inclusion, pardon me, while dismissing the most inclusive consultation in our history is to argue against one's own book. And the scrutiny matched the numbers, Mr. Speaker. This bill was examined by a record 8 committees of Parliament, 3 thematic committees of the Senate, and 5 portfolio committees of this Honorable House, the most that ever sat in the joint scrutiny of a single amendment. Those who called the consultation thin did not trouble to read who conducted it. And let no one call this bill a rewriting of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. It carries 22 clauses, fewer than the 24 of the amendment this Honorable House passed in 2021. An amendment no member then called an overhaul. Mr. Speaker, sir, and for support that named no single clause but embraced the war, I thank Honorable Karikoga, Kuldanga, Nyelele, Bin Lovu, and Honorable Chitambo. And for the same unqualified support, I thank Honorable S. Chuma, Honorable Mkani, Gava, Mudumi, Mashonganyika, and Natiso. Mr. Speaker, sir, the people of Zimbabwe asked for institutions that allow them to build. They asked in 540,037 written submissions, in 54,231 attendances at hearings in every province, and now through the contributions of 182 of their elected representatives, the clear majority of whom support this bill. The support inside this Honorable House resonates with the support outside it. The debate, Mr. Speaker, has been long. The scrutiny has been real. And the bill before us is stronger for both. We have listened, Mr. Speaker. We have answered. And where people and their committee asked us to reconsider, we have shown that we will. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, say, commend the Constitution Amendment number 3, Bill HB1 of 2026 to this Honorable House accordingly, and I move that the bill be now read a second time. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.
I put the question that the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3, Bill HB1 2026 be now read a second time. Those who have that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the clerk will read the bill a second time.
Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3, Bill HB1 of 2026.
One day of committee